If you want to get more out of your back workout, but you have rounded shoulders, then you need to pay attention to this video. Having rounded shoulders puts your back muscles at a disadvantage in two different ways. Not only is it forcing your upper back muscles to be in a stretched out position, which makes them weaker over time, it also prevents them from fully contracting and engaging during your lifts. And that's why in this video, I'm going to be giving you the perfect warm-up for back day if you have rounded shoulders. Welcome, my name's Adam, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over what I believe is the best warm-up for anyone who has rounded shoulders. This 15-minute warm-up will not only help anyone with rounded shoulders, but it's also going to help prime part of your posterior chain by first unlocking the anterior chain with my 3R system. Now if that sounds like something you're interested in, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Not for the YouTube algorithm, but for that extra rep you're going to easily hit today. Let's get into it. Now here's the entire warm-up laid out for you to screenshot if you want to save it for later. Now going through the 3R system real quick, we're going to be starting with the first R, which is release. Here we're going to be going through 30 seconds of self-massaging different muscles like the lats, the pecs, the anterior delts, and even the subscaps. These self-massage techniques are broken up by first warming up the bigger tissues using a foam roller, followed by targeting the smaller tissues like the pec minor and the subscap with your massage cane or smaller ball. Now once you self-massage all those different muscles, we're then going to be moving on to part 2, which is restore. Now during this time, we're going to be taking those shortened muscles that create your bad posture in the first place, and we're going to restore them back to their original length in order to help improve your posture. And the final R is retrain, where the idea here is to strengthen the weaker muscles that become weakened due to your bad posture. And this could be muscles like the posterior deltoids and the rhomboids. And for this, we're going to be performing 2 different exercises, 2 sets each for 30-second round. With all that out of the way, let's get started with this warm-up. So as I start rolling on my lats, you can see that I'm using my hand here in order to move the foam roller versus me having to roll over the foam roller myself. I do a little bit of pin and stretching. I'm trying to basically keep on moving throughout this entire foam rolling 30 seconds basically. So moving on to the anterior delts, you can see that I pull my arm back so I can really target the deltoids in the front, and it slightly puts them on a stretch. Now I'm also moving my arm all over the foam roller, and I'm using my other hand to control it as well. Again, you don't really want to spend too much time on one area. You want to constantly keep moving, get some blood flow in there, strip some fascia and all that. So moving on to the Pec Major, here I'm trying to basically roll from the sternum into the shoulder or vice versa in the other direction. Now of course you still want to avoid any bony areas. You don't want to roll too much on those, or at least ease the pressure on it. Here though you can see I'm doing some pin and stretching as well in order to really try to open up the chest. All right, moving on to the other side for another 30 seconds. Here you can see I'm starting a little more on my side so I can target that area right underneath the armpits. And again, I'm still using my other hand as well to move the foam roller. Do a little bit of pin and stretching. And here you can see I actually lean a little more towards the back to target the rest of the lats a little easier. Again, trying to do some movements, pin and stretching whatever I can so I can keep on moving. All right, moving on to the anterior deltoids. Again, I'm gonna place that arm behind me to put it onto a stretch here. I'm slowly going to roll back and forth, do some pin and stretching as well. Now here you can see that in a moment I'm going to be placing my hand behind my back And I do this so I can create a little more leverage, I can relax my arm, and I can also put that muscle onto a stretch. And moving on to the chest, final piece with the foam roller. Again, we're gonna do the same thing like we did last time. We're gonna try to go all the way across the chest from the sternum into the shoulder, but make sure to avoid any bony areas. If you are a female, make sure to try to pull the breast tissue away from where you're rolling. Breast tissue is mainly fat, and what we want to do is hit the muscle underneath it. Again, we're doing some pin and stretching, just trying to keep that body moving, trying to get some blood flow into that area. So now we're moving on to the trigger point, where all you have to do now is use a smaller ball. Here I have a 5-inch ball. And what we're gonna be doing is targeting the most tender spots within those muscles. You should have felt some tender areas as you were using the foam roller in the previous area. So now you're gonna target those same areas, doing very small movements or just hanging out on those tender spots for about 30 seconds each spot. Now we're doing the anterior deltoid, same exact thing. Here I'm gonna place my hand behind my back and we're just gonna hang out on that muscle. You can do a little bit of micro movements if you feel like you've been able to release it, but here you can see I'm just hanging out on that tender spot, breathing it in, and hopefully that trigger point will release. Moving straight on to the pec minor now, right between the pec major and the anterior deltoid. This muscle is deeper, so we want to use a smaller ball to get into it. And again, we're just going to either put the arm back or place it in front, whichever one helps you get into the deeper areas of the chest. This muscle controls mostly the scapula, so if you have problems with the scapula, it might be this pec minor. And we're gonna move straight into the chest now from here, separate from the pec major, pec minor. Again, we're just trying to find the most tender spot within the muscle. And we're gonna say bye to Stella as well. She probably heard something going on downstairs. But again, we're just looking for the most tender spot within the pec. Do a little bit of movements if you really need to, but we're just trying to relax and release these trigger points. All right, and that's on the other side now. Same exact thing, just look for the most tender spot and try to relax into it and release it. Take big, deep breaths. You can see it's very tender on me as well. Once again, just try to relax. If you need to do some small movements, go ahead and do so. All right, moving on to the anterior deltoid again. Once again, we're just going to hang out on this muscle, performing static pressure or micro movements, trying to release those tender spots. The pec minor, once again, just try to find the easiest position where you can get the deepest into the muscle, and then simply relax into the tool you're using and try to release that pec minor. And finally, moving straight into the chest, the pec major basically. We're just gonna try to find the most tender spots here. and we're going to relax into it and release it. So here I'm using a broom in order to get into the subscapularis. I'm using a broom because it is much easier to get into this deeper muscle, which is a rotator cuff. And once I'm in there, I'm simply going to be rotating my shoulders as much as I can in order to help release the subscap. This is a much deeper muscle, probably very tender, so just be aware of that as you're trying to release this. Here we're just simply going to change sides into the other subscap for another 30 seconds, repeating the same process. So here we're stretching the pecs now, and what I'm doing is I'm bringing the arm up towards parallel with the ground, and I'm going to be leaning into that chest as I now slightly rotate. You can see also that I bring the arm up slightly a little more, and all I'm doing here is looking for the tightest spot when I'm stretching the chest. Now from here, we're gonna go straight into the subscap / pec minor stretch. All we're doing here is bringing our elbow to the side. I'm using my hand on the wall now. And the idea here more is to pivot on the shoulder versus trying to push your body out to stretch the pec major. Same thing on the other side here. We're just going to stretch the chest, the pec major first. Again, the arm is up, I'm leaning forward, and as soon as I'm leaning forward, once I get into a nice stretch, I'm going to rotate on that shoulder to stretch the pec a little more. And again, I'm going to move the arm up and down if I have to. Here, I'm moving it up in order to help find the tightest area within the chest and hold that area for the stretch. And moving straight into the pec minor / subscap. One more time, the elbow is as close to the body as you can. Your hand is what you're using to block the rotation, and you're simply pivoting on that shoulder in order to stretch out those muscles in that pocket area. So here we're stretching the lats first, and what you need is a surface in front of you. What you're going to be doing here is placing your arms on top, thumbs up, and you're going to drop your head between your shoulder blades. What this does is help stretch out the lats by pushing your butt back and dropping the head at the same time. Now here you can see I keep my thumbs up as well. That's just to that's a mental focus, so I'm not rotating my shoulders inward as well. Now from here, we're stretching the anterior delts. All I'm going to do is use that same surface. I'm going to place my arm on top of it, and then I'm going to drop my knees basically so I can create a little bit of leverage and stretch the anterior deltoids. Again, I can keep my thumb pointing up a little bit, keep it pointing to the side, whatever one is easier for you and your shoulder. And we're gonna do the same exact thing on the other side, placing my wrist on top, dropping my legs to get a stretch in that right side of the anterior deltoid. Again, we're doing this for 30 seconds. So here I'm going to be performing external rotators. I place my elbows in front of my body, palms up, and with a mini band, I'm simply going to externally rotate or pull the band apart, hold for a second, and then let it return. The goal here is to perform as many reps as you can in a controlled manner within 30 seconds. And moving on to front pulls, very similar to the external rotators, except now we're moving the entire arm, trying to pinch the shoulder blades together, trying to get them closer towards the spine. Again, you want to initiate the movement by pulling the scapula towards the spine, as opposed to starting the movement by just simply opening your arms up and pulling the band apart. And we're moving on to the external rotators, one more round for each one. Again, I'm going to say it one more time because I think it's very important. Start the movement with the posterior delt and the infraspinatus in the back. Let that initiate the movement that opens the arms, and then that's what pulls the band apart. If you're just using your hands to pull apart your biceps and all the rest of these stuff, then you're not really training the muscles you need to be training. And moving on to the front pulls, one more round for 30 seconds. I'm going to say it one more time. Pull with the scapula. That's what pulls the arms apart, and that's what spreads the band apart. That's what creates the resistance. Let your rhomboids and mid traps do the movement, and let your hands follow. If you want to learn how to not only identify your own muscle imbalances, but also how to create a basic treatment plan, then make sure to click on the video in the top right corner. Other than that, my name's Adam, and I'll see you in the next one.